Hi, welcome back to Ask a Professor. I'm your host, Josh Boyd, and we have two brand new guests with us tonight. First, we have Wendy Hines. Wendy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am an assistant professor in interior design in the Department of Art and Design here at Purdue. This is my 5th year. My husband and I moved here from Boston, where I was in practice at an architectural firm. My husband is also faculty here at Purdue, and sometimes we work together and do some research together because of our research interests overlap. He is in engineering education. But before coming to Purdue, I worked for several years in an architectural firm, designing schools, K through 12 schools, so elementary schools, high schools. I have a real passion for how the built environment affects learning and engagement in classrooms. So I'm very excited to be here at Purdue.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Our second guest tonight is Jean Beeman. Jean, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at Purdue.
Yeah, hi. I'm a sociology professor here, an assistant professor. It's my 4th year. I'm also affiliated with the African American Studies program and the Global Studies program. I moved here in 2014 from Duke University, where I had a postdoc, and I did my graduate training, well, actually my undergraduate and graduate training at Northwestern University. So I lived in Chicago for quite a long time. I'm originally from the Baltimore area, and I do research here on race and ethnicity and immigration in France. So I've lived in France for a variety of periods and just wrote a book about that. And here I teach courses on race and ethnicity.
Great. We're glad to have you both. Let's jump right into the first question.
Is it worse to fail at something or never attempt in the first place?
Okay, so philosophical question to start us off. Is it worse to fail at something you try or just to not try in the first place? What do you think, Wendy?
I think it would be worse to not try at all, because failing is how we learn. And so I absolutely believe that failing is a good thing, and to not try will lead you basically nowhere.
Okay. Jean, you think the same thing?
I agree, yeah. I mean, I think failure is kind of inevitable in some respects, and thinking about all the things that I've accomplished in my life, part of that has been due to the things that I tried and did fail before I got it right. So you can't sort of make any progress forward, I think, without trying.
Yeah, and I think for professors it's kind of a paradox, right? Because we don't want our students to fail the course, and neither do our students, of course. But at the same time, we want students to be willing to risk things and try things and get feedback and learn from mistakes made. Can you think of a time that you regret not trying something that would have been maybe tough to pull off? You just stayed out of it and later thought, I should have given that a shot.
That's a tough one, because I have a role model in my life who taught me early on that regrets are often the things and the chances that we don't take. And so I have tried to live my adult life with that in mind. And so it's a challenge for me right now to think about something, an opportunity that I didn't take, because I really have tried to keep that in the back of my mind, that really if I don't try something, I most likely will regret not having that attempt. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of an example either, actually. I mean, I think part of being an academic is sort of trying as many things as kind of that we're presented with. So it's hard for me to think of a time when I didn't try something.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, in terms of something where you're trying to succeed, you're trying to achieve something specific. How about, I mean, these questions aren't necessarily all deep philosophical educational questions. Can you think of things that maybe just experiences that you had the chance and you didn't do it? You weren't afraid of failing, you just opted out. Any regrets about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can
you all
think
live
of
a life that's
yeah,
regret-free.
no, I mean,
That's
I can
really
think
impressive.
of, as a junior
Not all
faculty.
professors are like
I
this.
think if I want to do
Well,
something, I do it.
I would say as a junior faculty member, sometimes I've been too intimidated to sort of, confront an older faculty or senior colleague that I want to meet at a conference. And I know that sounds really silly, but, because I felt
And
intimidated.
confront sounds kind of scary.
Yeah,
You
no,
seem
just
like
like,
strike
introduce,
up a
yeah.
conversation and say, hey, I've read your work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Big
but I
fan
would
of the
feel
show, that kind of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But I felt too intimidated to do so, or felt that I was too junior. So that's maybe a more micro example. But
Sure.
yeah, I've definitely regretted some of those moments.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I encourage our students to do is we've had old masters on campus recently where we have these really successful graduates that come back and they give speeches and they meet with students. And I encourage our students, go talk to them, introduce yourself,
Yeah.
and it's intimidating to them. I mean,
Yeah.
I had one come, Ginger Thompson came and spoke in my classes, and she's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. And so some of my students are interested in journalism, and a couple of them were brave enough to go. She's very nice. A couple of them were brave enough to go talk to her, but I think a lot of them had kind of your reaction. I mean, she's not a celebrity, but they were still kind of intimidated. So yeah, maybe in small ways there are opportunities. But I think we'd all still probably agree that better to try it, and get
Yeah,
shot down
absolutely.
than
Yeah, absolutely.
to wish you had later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to the next question, let's take this break.
So the Brian Lamb School of Communication has a long tradition as a department of communication originally, so well over 100-year tradition.
There has been communication here in the teaching of speech and organizational communication and other things for decades.
We have a very vibrant, I think, curriculum for our students in 5 different areas of communication.
It's everything from human relations and communication about relationships to public relations to communication within organizations to video production.
I think we attract really a variety of students who are interested in learning about communication skills, but then also being able to use those skills in a variety of settings.
Students have a lot of chances to get real, practical, applied experience, hands-on learning.
The classes that I've taken have definitely helped me grow in the career that I want, and I could not imagine taking any of these classes anywhere else.
I think a great part of our curriculum is when we have alumni who come back to classes and talk to students.
The networking is incredible through this program. We're all over the nation and even all over the world. I've actually had an internship where a Purdue grad was working there full time, and it was at Warner Brothers Studios.
I think when people hear about Purdue University, their first thoughts are probably engineering and astronauts. I'd like for students who aren't necessarily interested in being astronauts or engineers to also think about Purdue, but in terms of the Brian Lamb School of Communication.
Also very excited to see what my future holds because of Purdue, and I know I'm fully prepared because of the Brian Lamb School.
Welcome back to Ask a Professor. Once again, here's how this works. We have no idea what these questions are about until we hear them right here in the studio. So let's check out that next question.
My question is, after the mass shootings in Texas and Las Vegas, what's your stance on gun laws and what is a solution you can recommend?
Oh, a softball question. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? Do you want to take this one on first?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Matt, I'll buy you
Yeah.
some more time. Mass shootings.
Yeah.
What can be done? What's a solution? What do you think?
Well, I think I approach this question as a sociologist, so someone who's really interested in not just sort of social problems, but how we frame and understand social problems. So I would sort of want us to take a step back as a society to think about, how did this problem come to be, right? And what are the sort of causes of this problem? What are the sort of trends that we see and who these shooters are? And what does that tell us about, other dynamics in our society, such as, masculinity, domestic violence, these sorts of things. And I really think that these are the issues, or these are some of the issues that we need to address as a society before we even get to the gun issue, which is also a very problematic issue as well. So I favor stronger gun laws, but I think with this, we also have to think about it in a larger societal context.
Okay, such as what? Like what are the things that you would point to and say this is something we need to solve in a larger societal context before we maybe get
Well,
to
I
the
mean, I think we
details.
have, as a society, don't always address mental health issues as well as we should, or we often criminalize people who suffer from those illnesses. And I think, some of the shooters in some of these cases, just in our history, have been people with a history of mental illness that maybe hasn't been addressed officially or addressed at all. So I think, tackling that problem, I think, is very important for us.
Okay. Wendy, what are your thoughts on this one?
How to solve the issue? That's a really big question. I definitely support stronger gun laws. I do not understand the need to have guns other than for hunting purposes, and it's just absolutely tragic. I think that the Newtown massacre rings most loudly for me. I remember that day vividly, sitting in the office and hearing about the little children, the kindergartners, and those who perished and those who still who survived, the experience that they had, and as a mother with 2 little children, I just and as a human being, I just can't fathom what it's like to be a parent in a situation like that, and it just wrecks me, to think about it, and I don't understand the need for people to have guns. I don't. Yeah. So every time I hear one of these, hear about one of these shootings, I'm speechless.
So in your career, designing schools, working with schools, do these kinds of things, especially in places like churches and schools, do they give you any ideas about ways to make schools safer in their design, for example? Are there things that can be done, or is it always going to be like, the human element in any
None of
system?
the school projects that I've worked on have had to go as far as having, say, metal detectors. But schools are locked during school hours. They typically lock as the school day begins, and then they're unlocked. At 3:30 or whenever the official school time ends. But then basically anyone can access the buildings at those points. But other than that kind of security, and then also having the administrative areas towards the front entrance of the building, there's not a whole lot that designers can do as far as creating safe places. We could create closets, larger security zones that maybe are safe havens that students and teachers can go to, but we have not been doing that up until this point. That's not something that...
Yeah. Does it come up? When schools are consulting with you, do they ask specifically about those kinds of things, or is it's still not really much of an issue?
It hasn't really come up in the meetings that I've been privy to.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it doesn't come up.
Sure. I think these have shown that enforcement of current laws seems to be pretty lax. Apparently, I haven't read all the details, but it seems that some of the guns involved were guns that legally, people weren't supposed to have in the first place. So it makes it difficult, I think, to figure out, because if there are already laws that would prevent some of these things and they're not being enforced for whatever reason, or people aren't communicating with each other and reporting, which seems to be part of the situation, maybe related to the military or mental health facilities, and it's a pretty tough problem.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, and maybe this is the same kind of national crisis, I don't know, but it reminds me of 9/11, and I was teaching here when that happened and remember that day vividly. But the desire after that for law enforcement agencies to communicate better with one another about threats, and that they appear to be better at that, but that maybe communicating about things related to gun laws could take the same kind of overhaul. That would be my only guess, given the current situation and strong feelings about it. But definitely tragic. Let's hope our next question is not quite as much of a Debbie Downer, and maybe we'll have more concrete solutions for that one. But first, we'll take this break.
It starts with the belief that we can do more. Go beyond our borders, the world, and reach even the moon. We believe that delivering a world-class education and delivering value mean the exact same thing. It's pure gold. After all, where'd you think our colors came from?
What are we doing for life? What are you doing with your life? Boilermakers forge a revolution for humanity. Research to stop cancer. Knowledge to spark a business. Hands-on learning to heal the real world. When you're open to being a change maker, willing to work harder to transform lives, then you're ready to make life better. Health and Human Sciences at Purdue University.
Their place on Saturday where we fight for them on spike, but you know that's always up for grabs.
They're not taking it.
Knowing that when we play them, we're getting their best game, and knowing that when we beat them, we beat the best version of IU.
Well, it's always fun just because, like, you know, it's rivalry week, so like anytime any sport team is going up against Indiana, it's always like you get extra excited for it just because of that pride at Purdue. But we are Boilermakers, and even though we're considered Hoosiers in a way, we are the state of Indiana. We're not real Hoosiers, we're Boilermakers. So they're gonna bring their A game.
Last year we played them in Mackey.
The Mackey match was insane.
It's about 520, super high intensity, super passionate. So you know they're gonna come ready to play.
We're back with Ask a Professor. Let's hear our next question.
My question is, how do you feel about the people on campus who are preaching their religion by screaming and shaming other students?
Okay, street preachers on campus, screaming and shaming other students. I think the one that I see most frequently is in front of the new Active Learning Center. Have you?
Oh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, but there have been others in the Memorial Mall area. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I see the one by the class of 1953.
Yeah, right in front of the class of 50.
Yeah.
What are they saying?
I don't
are
really
they-
even, I guess I mean
they-
to answer the question. I don't even
What
really
are they
pay that much
citing
attention.
on?
Yeah, just kind of shouting stuff about going to hell and various things. Is that what yours is?
I think, yeah, mine. I take no ownership.
Yeah.
But I do go to the walk occasionally, and I don't know. I have not stood in the. Do you know? Have you seen any of these visitors to campus?
I don't think I have. I don't get out of POW too much this semester. I do teach in Beering. I teach one class, so I can walk across the mall from POW to Beering, but I haven't seen any.
Well, the one in front of the walk, and unfortunately I don't know names or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
me neither.
He tends to get in good weather days. He gets a pretty good crowd sometimes, and people are listening to him, and he seems to have a little bit more give and take where people will respond to him, and so I think there's a variety. I've had students that have been upset because they feel like they got singled out and shouted at. I haven't really seen that
with
myself.
him, or are they trying to?
Well, when I see it, generally
Good
people
dialogue
are
with him.
either questioning him, or I think it seems to me that he wants some clash and disagreement, and I think he's getting that. But there are days when I've seen 30 or 40 people kind of in a half circle listening to him. And I don't think this was probably intentional, but the area in front of the Active Learning Center, and if you're watching and haven't been to campus lately, you really should check out the Active Learning Center. It's very impressive. But the area in front of the Active Learning Center, which I don't think this was intentional, but there are lots of benches. It was meant to be a place where students gather and study and talk. But there are also lots of flat platforms, essentially, that you can stand up on top of and project. And it's at this kind of choke point right in front of the bell tower and the Active Learning Center, and lots of students come through there. And so, it probably shouldn't be surprising that somebody would take advantage of that spot where they have kind of a captive audience.
Yeah.
I think it's part of this ongoing challenge on campus, it seems to me, to balance freedom of speech with people feeling like they're being hurt or harmed in some way by what other people do. And I don't know. Overall thoughts on this kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree with you that it sort of cuts right into that tension. Yeah, I don't personally pay a lot of attention to it. I think what's personally kind of problematic for me is as someone who identifies as Christian and but doesn't identify with that kind of method or rhetoric.
Right.
And so I personally kind of feel a need to distance myself from that sort of performance.
Yeah.
And I think there is a very much of a performative element to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't always agree with those tactics, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Wendy, how about you?
I would, are these individuals affiliated with Purdue? Are they students?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so.
I think they're community members. I don't
Yeah.
think that's the idea that they're students or anything like that.
So I wondered to
Some
some
maybe.
extent.
I mean, I don't know that I
Yeah.
can speak for all.
But I mean,
that ever.
some of the ones I've seen are like older than
The
undergrad.
guy in front of the walk is, I mean,
Oh, really? He's young.
I'm a middle-aged man.
Okay.
I'm bad at perspective on these kinds of things.
Okay.
But he doesn't seem old. to
Oh,
me.
okay. That's interesting.
And is there ever a thing, any kind of law related to loitering on a campus if you're not affiliated with the campus that you're aware of?
I think
I'm just
Purdue
curious, I
has
have no
had a
idea.
pretty open campus in terms of people coming on and off, and not really any policing of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly, support the right for them to say what they feel the need to say, and the right to say it. But if it's not somebody who's Purdue affiliated, I do question whether or not they do have the right to be on campus to say those things. And I don't know. I don't know what the legal jurisdiction of that would be, but it's
Yeah,
something to think about.
Yeah, we have a pretty, I mean, our campus doesn't really restrict movement, I don't think, very much. I was thinking about what you said, Jean, about and I'm kind of in the same boat because I'm a Christian too, but I wouldn't do the same, take the same very confrontational kind of approach. And so it's kind of awkward because on one hand, I mean, I haven't stopped to listen. I'm sure that we have areas where we agree, where, values that we share, but it is kind of awkward because I don't feel like I'm like that person, even though in some ways I might be like that person. But I think it's been going on here for quite a while.
Yeah, that's
The
understanding.
location changes over time, and there are different personalities, but this is my 20th year at Purdue, and I think there were people out in the mall talking about whatever they wanted to when I first got here. You know, it's maybe our own little version of Speaker's Corner or something.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more lowbrow. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot more maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But it's one kind of Purdue tradition, I guess. We have one more question left, but before we take that question, we'll head out for one more commercial break.
Where can I get a degree that will give me a theoretical knowledge but help me to apply it?
That the curriculum is different from most of the other colleges on campus.
All hands-on. I get to do a lot of lab work. I get to work with stuff. I get to make things.
You're always working with your hands and you're actually doing the stuff instead of sitting in a classroom just hearing about all of it.
You get to know professors and other staff on an individual level.
Willing to do anything they can to help you succeed.
One-on-one learning experiences focus on problem solving, how to learn, how to think.
Actually having clients and actually working with them.
My internship was with Apparatus Infrastructure Services.
Internship with Procter & Gamble.
I'm doing an internship this summer at Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance.
When I went to my internship, it was so easy to apply what I learned in class.
I'm in my capstone project. It's kind of like a senior design. End of the year, I'm graduating. Let's see what I can do with all the things that I've learned.
Extremely diverse.
It's a very global and diverse environment.
We're in smaller classes. We get to work on our own projects very often.
Finding this team, this perfect team.
I've really enjoyed learning a lot more about proper persuasive techniques.
I've gained so many leadership skills.
I've become really good at actually giving oral presentations now.
And I've really sort of come out of my shell.
I can utilize both of these majors and get well-rounded in these areas.
If you're thinking about coming to Purdue Polytechnic,
do it.
Purdue has so many opportunities for you.
You're going to grow not only just by your academics and your skills, but you're going to grow as a person.
I want to be that person that inspires a child to go in technology.
You just have so many opportunities here that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. Let's take on that last question.
If you could make a 30-second speech to the entire world, what would it be?
Wow, a 30-second speech to the entire world. Wendy, what would it be?
Oh, no. Well, that's a pretty important speech. I might
6
have to,
seconds already gone.
I might have to think about it.
Just kidding.
Josh?
Yeah, no, I'm just the humble moderator. What do you think, Jean? What would be your 30-second speech?
So I have one that's probably more confrontational. I would give a speech about the need to end white supremacy.
What would you say in 30 seconds that would change the world?
Well, change the world, I don't know. But I would outline how this is something that is global and not just an American phenomenon. So I probably would sort of reach to some of the stuff I teach my students, frankly.
So
and I talk really fast, so I could get a lot of content in. Yeah.
What's one idea about this that you hope your students all take away from you?
The need to sort of value everyone as an equal human being, and to think about the ways that we don't do that, either intentionally or unintentionally.
Such as, what are some ways that we maybe unintentionally don't do that we ought to be aware of? This may not be the whole world, but you've got a viewing audience. What is it?
Well, just thinking about when we create particular spaces or environments, who do we not include, even if we're not thinking that we're not including them? Who are those spaces not accessible to, whether it's someone with disabilities, someone who doesn't identify as heterosexual and doesn't feel comfortable in a particular space, these sorts of things. So I would sort of try to make that kind of emphasis.
Okay. Yeah. You've had a little bit more time for thought. You have anything to add?
At least 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Karma. It'd be about karma. I truly believe that what you put out there in the universe is what comes back to you. And to serve, and that is where the true happiness is going to come from, serving others.
Okay, that's excellent. We talked earlier about our faith. I would probably use it as not the way the street preachers do, but as a chance to, one of my favorite verses is, we love because he first loved us. And that's not too far off from serving. But I think I would use it, if you're, whatever your faith tradition, if you believe other people ought to follow that faith, it seems like it'd be a shame to waste the opportunity for something like that.
Absolutely.
So that's a pretty heavy question. I'm glad we didn't have to actually make the 30-second speech. We just kind of had to talk about it.
Yeah.
This is true.
That'll be the next episode.
What do you think our students would say if they had 30 seconds in front of the world?
It depends on the student, I guess.
Yeah, but what seemed to be their pressing? I need to express this to the world.
Sustainability in our area anyway. There's a lot of passion for sustainable initiatives in the built environment and protecting the planet.
On campus too, a lot of our newer buildings are very
LEED certified buildings.
That.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of students might spend some of their time on that. What do you think?
Well, I've talked to a lot of students who are really involved or concerned about diversity issues on campus, particularly racial and ethnic diversity. So that's probably something I can imagine a bunch of students talking about.
Yeah. I'm thinking about other areas of Purdue that we don't necessarily represent. I think there are students concerned about climate change. I think there are students concerned about agriculture. We have some really passionate students in agriculture that believe, they have kind of a mission to feed the world and make it possible to keep up with the population. I think some of them might choose to talk about that. But you're right, all students are different. Occasionally there will be a student that's really passionate about something I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
Which is one of the great things about being here, right? You learn all kinds
that
of
happens all the time.
That's what's wonderful about being a professor.
It is. It's one of the great things. So we don't actually get to speak to the world for 30 seconds, but we shared our ideas. Hopefully it's given you something to think about. Thanks for joining us tonight. For more information about our show, you can visit the Facebook page to rewatch past episodes or check out our YouTube page. At Ask a Professor, we thank you for tuning in. I'm Josh Boyd. Have a great night.